I wonder, don't raise any hands, I wonder how many people need to hear those words today. If not today, one day we all need to hear those words. Your faith has saved you. Go in peace. Be free from your suffering. I want to analyze this whole thing with this woman and look at how we can then take that lesson and apply it to us. Look at this woman. We really have to have a little bit of background in Old Testament law. This woman suffered for 12 years. By the way, you go over to Luke's Gospel and we see the same story, and we find out that this daughter whom Jesus is going to heal, guess how old she is? 12 years old. Interesting. She's been suffering as old as this child is. She's been suffering some kind of menstrual bleeding, who knows, some kind of hemorrhage that was going on, and she just suffered. And she suffered, it says, by the way, Luke does not record this. You know, Luke was a physician. He doesn't record that she suffered at the hands of the doctors. He kind of leaves that part out. But she did. She spent all her money. So look, here she is. She's tried everything humanly possible. And that was her first recourse, as is often the case mine and yours. How many times has it been that, you've heard people, well, now all we can do is pray about it. Why is it not our first recourse? But here's this woman. In the Old Testament, Leviticus chapter 15, verse 25, if a woman has continuous bleeding like this woman has, it is not only a physical problem, but it is also a social problem because she is what they call unclean. What does that mean? She can't interact socially. Anything she sits on, anything that she touches, anything that anybody touches that she has sit on is unclean. And now you're separated from the community. This is a hugely terrible problem socially. 12 years she's gone through this. And yet, as Jairus, she somehow finds out about Jesus. And she believes that somehow, some way, Jesus is going to be able to help me. Her faith is a little bit skewed. It's a little bit even superstitious, but she has that little bit of faith, and the object of her faith is what's important. Not the operation, but the object of her faith is Jesus, and so she gets on a disguise, no doubt. She should not be in public. She should not be in the crowd, but she's willing to risk this for the reward that she hopes to get. And so she gets into the crowd in this disguise. She comes in secret, and she comes in suffering, believing if she can just touch Jesus' clothes, she will be healed. And so she comes in her secret suffering, desperate, trusting in Jesus that He's going to be able to help her. When's the last time that you and I have done that? When's the last time that we have risked something for the expression of our faith? What have you actually risked, you and I, in our world? What have we risked? When have we done it? Where have we done it? When is the last time you have seen faith? How do we know faith? You have to put something to risk in the real expression of our faith. Faith is so much more than just a feeling. In this woman, we see her faith. Faith is always accompanied by action. And she comes in secret, in her suffering. And Jesus does something, to me, is absolutely amazing. Jesus exposed her publicly. Now, I just love it when He asked the question, who touched me? And His disciples, I could just see them just frustrated, like, there's all kinds of people touching you, Jesus. How can you ask, who touched me? But there's this time, and there's going to be another time, there's something very interesting. When people say stuff like that to Jesus, you know what He does? He ignores them. He just overlooks that. All right? He's got a different agenda here. And I got to ask you, I did this in small group one time, and it's true. How would you feel if you were called out publicly? And try to imagine this woman, because realize you've got the background history on her now. You know that she is breaking the law to get to Jesus. She is risking even possibly her own life. But definitely a good beating and definitely being ostracized and chewed out. And I mean, it's a scary business here. And can you imagine her when Jesus calls her out? How does she feel? She's scared witless. Look at the text tells us, right, how scared she is. She came trembling at His feet with fear. And I got to ask you, why in the world did Jesus do that? Why did he call her out publicly? And there's so many lessons that spin off on that. Why didn't he say, well, I know who it is. Let's go off to the side and we'll talk about this. He didn't. He called her out publicly, and the woman came, and there's a big crowd, and now she's called out. All her fears are realized. The rabbi is calling me. I shouldn't be touching people, let alone I shouldn't touch a rabbi, and I have done that publicly, and he knows it, and he's calling me out. Where can I hide? Can you imagine? She's looking for a rock or something to climb under. And why did Jesus do that? Why was he not more sensitive? What is so important that's going on here that he calls her out publicly? Well, there's several things that come to mind. And one is that I shared this with you last week. When God busts a move like this, when he works powerfully like this, it's not just for the recipient. You realize that? It's not just for them. It's for others too. When God works mightily like this, it's not just for you. It's not just for me. It's for others. So this faith needs to be understood, that it needs to be proclaimed publicly. What's going on? And also so that this gal knows that it's not just by some kind of superstitious rubbing some idol here, but that's the relationship that you now have with me. There are risks in following Jesus in this world. This lady knows it. This healing is not just for her. It's for the crowd too. The crowd needed to hear and to see her life-saving faith. And so Jesus has her come out and basically make that faith public. And the story doesn't end there, does it? Because then we see that her faith is rewarded. And she's healed. And she's set free. She was healed and freed from her suffering. His power went out from him and it went into her. And it healed her immediately. All right? He affirms her saving faith. He affirms it, saying, daughter, your faith has saved you. And by the way, the idea of salvation and healing, they're all intertwined here, aren't they? Body and soul. He says, your faith has saved you. He affirms that. She's been set free from her infirmity. Now, think about this. Jesus isn't just like some electronics or electrical source, and as people touch him, zap, 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 all his power is going out. But no, there was all kinds of people that touched him that day, weren't there? But there was only one that received that healing power. Why do you suppose that is? And I'll share this with you. There are a lot of people who follow Jesus. You can get a Jesus crowd up very easily. Very easily you get a Jesus crowd together. A lot of people are curious about Jesus. A lot of people want to go and see Jesus. But how many people come to him with ultimate faith in Jesus? It is to those people that the power of Jesus is brought to. Not to those who are just curious, not to just the crowd who's kind of wavering around him, but those who have risked everything, given everything for him, believed in him, that he's able to do what he says he can do. So the crowd. Jesus loves the crowd, but he knows the crowd's not committed. Jesus, when he sees a crowd, does he really see a crowd? He sees individuals. He sees individuals in that crowd. Do you think it's by mistake that Jesus is here at this particular time and this woman is here? No, it's not. He had another divine appointment with this lady right here, right now. Do you notice with Jesus, he's available? He doesn't get flustered. He didn't say, hey, look at lady, I'm a little busy right now. Do you realize the synagogue ruler's daughter is critically ill and you just need to wait your turn? He didn't get flustered a bit. In the middle of ministry, he doesn't even fluster. He doesn't skip a beat. He doesn't stutter. He's ready at any time, any moment, to infuse his power into those who truly believe in him. Right here, right now, you and me. He calls her daughter.